So On Ancient Earth is an exhibition about the relationships we have with what lies beyond the outer edges of Earth's atmosphere. This is the second in a series of artist talks accompanying the exhibition, and you can view the full exhibition online at theartistexpeditionsociety.com/onancientearth. I'm just copying and pasting a link to that into the chat now. This talk series is broadcasted from and tuned into from many different places around the world. But Central Australia is the base of this exhibition and webinar series. I would like you to type your name and location into the chat box. So my name is Anna and I'm in Central Australia. There we go. So I have got an English accent, but I am actually based in Alice Springs, Mumbatwa. The location of the exhibition is Alice Springs, Mumbatwa, and we are on Aranda country. And I would like to acknowledge elders past, present, and emerging. For anyone who's interested in learning a little bit more about local Aranda culture, there's a really insightful Welcome to Country by local Aranda woman Kumali Riley associated with the exhibition. And that's available to view on the website until the exhibition closes on the 4th of October. So this exhibition and talk series are a part of the Desert Festival, which is an annual festival of arts in Alice Springs. And the talk series particularly was funded by the Alice Springs Town Council. On Ancient Earth was co-curated by Lumen's Rebecca Huxley, Louise Beer, and Melanie King, who is on the call today, and myself, Anna Dakin, from the Artist Expedition Society. Today's speakers are Nettie Edwards and Caroline Mawer. Nettie is a British artist who's enjoyed a long and fruitful association with Lumen. She works with smartphone technology and sustainable photographic darkroom processes. Many of her projects explore humankind's spiritual and physical relationships with light. Caroline is an artist with experiences of night skies in many countries. Today, Caroline will talk about the mythical stories related to her experiences of sleeping out under the stars in various wild and remote places, as well as her own creative practice, which has developed during this lockdown. So Nettie is first off today, and Nettie, I'll hand over to you now.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. First, a little apology. I'm using my iPad, so I'm looking off screen because of where the camera's situated. I hope that's not too annoying. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for inviting me to give this talk. I'm hoping it will be of interest. Just want to do a little show and tell first, because during the talk, I talk about lenses and you won't be able to see me. So I just want to show you some of the lenses I'm talking about. This is a telescope, a vintage telescope lens. This is a vintage theatre lantern lens. I used to work in the theatre, so I have quite a lot of these. This is a magnifying lens, rather wonderful thing. I don't know where it came from, but I think it was off a ship. Can you see that? And then I have lots of other things. I have a condenser lenses from projectors, vintage camera lenses, and I work a lot with these, and I'm going to talk about these in my presentation. And I also have this, which I stole from a cemetery in Italy. It was in the bin. I'm not ashamed. Anyway, so I'm going to start my presentation now. Let's see. Share content, screen, start broadcast. Let me know if there are any problems, but this worked 5 minutes ago. Okay, so my name's Nettie Edwards. As Anna explained, I work with camera phones and with alternative processes, mainly the Anthotype process, which when I began working with it in 2014, it was quite niche, but during lockdown it's blossomed, which is wonderful, and lots of people are exploring this process now. Essentially, I use plant pigments to capture sunlight, stroke starlight, and I'm not going to explain a lot about the Anthotype process. There's a lot that you can see online. There's a video that's made about my process by the London Alternative Photography Collective, and also by them, they've made some videos. There's lots of resources out there. These are 3 anthotypes that I made with sweet pea juice, with beetroot and ground elder juice, and with beetroot. The reason that I talk about starlight and sunlight is that our distance from the stars gives us a specific perception of what starlight is. Starlight inhabits our imaginations as a feature of the night sky, but the sun is a star, and our closer proximity to it allows it to support life on Earth, and to bask in its rays. And photosynthesis connects the Earth to the cosmos, so we're intrinsically bound up with this process, and we're creatures of light. Walt Whitman said, "A leaf of grass is no less than the journey work of the stars." So everything's connected. We're connected to the cosmos. The Earth is connected to the cosmos, which leads us very neatly into two of the key players of the Anthotype process, Mary Somerville and John Herschel, both of whom happen to have been astronomers. There's Mary Somerville's crater on the left, one of only 12 craters named after women, and John Herschel's crater on the right. I'm going to come back to Somerville later, but both of these people were interested in light because they were astronomers. They worked with lenses. They were 19th century scientists. So in 2015, I had the great pleasure of being asked by Lumen to attend one of their residencies, their first residency in Athena in Italy. It was the Year of Light, and we were all artists who were interested in exploring light in our work. Athena is a very lovely small hill town in the mountains in the Lazio region of Italy. And it's got cosmic credentials because it's one of the 5 cities that were meant to have been built by the great god Saturn himself. And the Cathedral of Santa Maria Assunta is built directly over the remains of the original temple of Saturn. Athena suffered major earthquakes and also bombing in World War II, yet it still prevails despite the fact that the population is somewhat diminished now. And we had some fantastic trips out during this residency. Nearby Monte Cassino, the basilica there, very beautiful basilica that was rebuilt after the bombing in the Second World War, full of cosmic imagery. And we were given the opportunity to view the private library. Usually the general public don't get to see that. And we were shown some absolutely remarkable items. On the right, that's a picture from the Nuremberg Chronicles published in 1492. And the image depicts the beginning of the world. It's very zen. Also, while I was on the residency, I began reading a book called Influences, Art, Optics and Astrology in the Italian Renaissance. And the book, in the preface, Mary Quinlan McGrath explains that she's investigating why art patrons of the 15th and 16th centuries in Italy came to believe that celestial forces could operate through their works and architecture. McGrath argues that this belief system was not an obscure or magical thing, but in harmony with the philosophical, religious and scientific beliefs of the 15th and 16th centuries. And that book had a huge influence on my thinking during the residency, as did my reading of Pope Francis's writings about the Year of Light. I decided to look at the Catholic perspective. Of course, a lot of the world's faiths and spiritual beliefs are interested in light and put light at the centre of their belief systems. But I was in a Catholic town and I decided to look at the way that Catholics look at light and Christians look at light. Down the road from the main town is a cemetery of Athena, a very lovely cemetery. And most of the artists end up here, alive, I must add, because it's such an inspiring, beautiful and peaceful place. It was built in 1840 on the remains of the old Roman town, and some residents of Athena actually slept here. They took up residence in the cemetery following the bombing during the Second World War because the town was so devastated. The cemetery is electrified in rather a precarious way. There are wires everywhere, and this is kept up. 2 guys on the left are doing maintenance. It's not so it can be illuminated at night because the gates close at dusk. It's so that the electric votive candles and flames can keep burning. You've seen my little example of a broken one that I've stolen. And it's also so that the chairlifts can operate. One of the features of the cemetery, and most Italian cemeteries, are these burial vaults with a rather alarming electrical sign there, and you can see some of the precarious wiring. The vaults are fascinating, and many of them are empty. Not many of them, quite a few of them are empty and abandoned. They don't have residents. And I was fascinated by the abandoned ones. At first, for the narratives that they suggested, abandoned spaces with random artifacts connected to the upkeep of the graves and the monuments. And it's quite wonderful and bizarre. You can see there's a statue of Jesus here, and he's got some cactus plants next to him. Wonderful things, and an empty bottle. So there's detritus, cleaning solutions, brooms, empty bottles, bits of wood, old flowers. It's all there. And so at first I was very interested in this, in the way that they contained the mechanics, if you like, of the cemetery. But then I became very interested in the narratives. So some of them had very obvious narratives. I loved the way that this plastic that's been discarded in a niche looks like a shrouded body, and the way that the letters look as if somebody's name has been scattered across the earth. And then as I started to look more closely, I became drawn to them as emotional spaces. I was a theatre designer for many years, and I'm very interested in the relationship of light and shade, of matter and air and space, and the way that space is carved up. So I started looking at these spaces and the relationship of light and dark within them. And as I looked more closely at the plastic items, and I was drawn into them as abstract forms, and I started to look at the way that the light was reflected off them. And I was thinking about light, the year of the light, the power of light, cosmic light, light as a spiritual force. It was a very, very hot day. And even so, it was quite dark within the burial vaults. And so I carry around with me all the time several lenses, one of which is this huge theatre lantern lens. And I decided it would be interesting to start playing with bits of glass that were lying around, but also the lenses I had in my bag, to manipulate the light that was available into these niches, to animate them and to animate the light, and to see what shapes and patterns and narratives I could find. And they took on a life of their own. Totally bizarre that suddenly things started to become illuminated from the inside. I mean, there wasn't an electrified light inside a plastic bottle. It just simply looked that way. And I became more and more obsessed and excited by what was going on, using the light, trapping the light and capturing the light and harvesting the light with these lenses. I love the way that the one on the right looks like a body, a headless woman's body. And the extraordinary thing is that even though this is a place of death and these niches are very barren, there's life in there. Little plants growing in the crevices in the darkness. And again, I use my lenses to shine light on these things so that hopefully I could show they glow from within. There's a life there within death, a celestial light. And eventually, as usually happens with me, the images became more and more abstract. I can't even tell you how I made these images, and I certainly don't know how the one on the right happened. Because when I'm doing this, I get into a kind of a dance, a rhythm, and the images just happen. And then afterwards, I try to reproduce them, and I can't. So eventually, after I think 2 weeks, we had an exhibition in a beautiful unconsecrated church, a deconsecrated church in Athena, where we all share our work with the local residents. And they come out. The people of Athena love art and they love to see the work. And I didn't have time to print these as anthotypes. So instead, I did them as little votive offerings. So little prints placed in strategic places in the church with candles. So they were like little prayers, little offerings, little thoughts, and little sharings of light. later in the year, we were given the opportunity by Lumen to reassess our work, having left Italy for some months, and some distance in time and in a new space, which was the Crypt Gallery in St Pancras Church, London, which is the most extraordinary, beautiful space to exhibit in. I've had the privilege of exhibiting there with Lumen on a number of occasions, and I've also done a residency there. Beautiful, abandoned, not abandoned because it's used as an exhibition space, but it's a crypt and it's empty, and there are lots of empty burial vaults there. Very inspiring place. So what I did was that I looked at my images again, and I curated a set of 6 that I felt had particular meaning to me. I would like to have printed these as anthotypes, but the weather was pretty grim, and you need a lot of light, a lot of sunlight to print anthotypes. So I decided that what I wanted to do was use the anthotype as a metaphor, the anthotype process as a metaphor, which is something I'm very interested in. And so I coated pieces of circular shroud cloth with wine, and I placed them with transparencies of my images under large glass theatre lanterns. And these were about, I think they're about, the ones I used were about 8 inches across. So they're big, they're from larger lanterns. And these were placed on a light box and placed on the floor of an empty burial chamber in the crypt. So this was the installation. And I called it Waiting for a Miracle because, as far as I was concerned, attempting to get an anthotype exposure in the darkness of a crypt where there's no sunlight was an impossibility. And so it was an act of faith. And then on the opening night of the exhibition, I got talking to a cosmologist who said, well, actually, there is light down here. There is natural light. There are particles of light, photons of light in the atmosphere. They're there. So if you leave this here for about 1 million years, you might just get an anthotype, which I thought was really exciting and interesting. So that's Waiting for a Miracle, and that's the process that I went through to create it. And I want to talk briefly now about 2 other pieces of work that I developed working along this idea of working with light and what light is. Because as Mary Quinlan McGrath points out, light isn't just something that's from the sun, from the stars. It's an entity in its own right. In most creation stories, and certainly the Christian creation story, it's the first thing that God creates. It's the source of all life. It's there. And over the next 3 visits with Lumen to Athena, they can't get rid of me. I made work that explored light energy from which physical matter emerges and ultimately returns. So here briefly are 2 more projects that look at that. Tornare alla luce is, well, I'm still working on this. A friend of mine in Italy gave me a lot of negatives that were from his father's photographic studio. And because he knows I'm interested in genealogy. And I was working with these negatives, and I think negatives are beautiful, wonderful things that are often discarded and disregarded. And I was interested in these as carriers of light, as relics of light. And I started to explore these. I've made videos of these as well, looking at the point of death where matter is transformed to energy, to light, that possibility. So that struggle between matter and light. We're born of light, we're creatures of light. We come out of the Big Bang, that huge explosion of light, and we're energy. Energy never dissipates, it just changes. And this piece of work was also produced in Italy, The Impossible Poetry of His Ashes, which again looks at the struggle between matter and light. These were shot inside a house where a friend of mine had lived during the last days of his life. And they're abstract pieces made with lenses, and the light that was filtering through the shutters, again on a very hot week. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about what I'm moving forward to do. And that brings me back to Mary Somerville. So I'm going to tell you that in 2019, I travelled to Belfast to do a workshop, an Anthotype workshop with the London Alternative Photography Collective. And while I was there, I went to the market and I found some beautiful cards with these illustrations on them. And I thought, well, these are gorgeous. I'm going to have these. And the man selling them said, well, they're by Mary Somerville. She was a Scottish astronomer. And that's very interesting. But I didn't think any more of it for a while. And then later on, I decided to look into a little bit more about Mary Somerville. Mary Somerville was a Scottish science writer and polymath, and she studied mathematics and astrology, amongst many other things. And she was nominated to be jointly the first female member of the Royal Astronomical Society at the same time as Caroline Herschel. And Somerville was an extraordinary woman, and there isn't time to do justice to the range of her interests and achievements, but possibly most significantly, in Mary Somerville's universe, all the dots joined up. And on all that is interesting.com, it's noted that after reading, I'm reading this, on the connection of the physical sciences, which was Mary Somerville's book, one of them, scientific historian William Whewell coined the term scientist for Somerville. He did not intend for this to be a gender-neutral term for man of science. Rather, he made it in order to reflect the interdisciplinary nature of Somerville's expertise. She was not just a mathematician, astronomer, or physicist. She possessed the intellectual acumen to weave these concepts together seamlessly. Somerville was passionate about astronomy because she believed it best exemplified the connections between the physical sciences. And this is a quote from Mary. In astronomy, we perceive the operation of a force which is mixed up with everything that exists in the heavens or on the earth, which pervades every atom, rules the motions of animate and inanimate beings, and is as sensible in the descent of a raindrop as in the falls of Niagara, in the weight of the air as in the periods of the moon. Oh, I love that. It's so poetic and beautiful. She was a scientist, and her response to nature was poetic. Very special woman. And that leads us back to Walt Whitman. A leaf of grass is no less than the journey work of the stars. And so what I'm doing at the moment is taking the connection of physical sciences by Mary Somerville as my starting point, and I'm creating another set of anthotypes in progress, like my Waiting for a Miracle work in the crypt. But I'm using specifically I'm using the telescope lenses that I showed you. I'm using magnifying lenses, and I'm working with some of Mary's illustrations. I'm working with, this is algae on the left, that's microscopic views of algae, and the nebula. And I'm placing these things outside on my allotment at night time. And I'll probably place them in some kind of constellation arrangement that's directly above that space. I'll find out what it is and I'll arrange them in that way to create a dialogue between the earth and the stars. And as a very simple way of expressing Mary Somerville's beautiful sense of connectivity between everything, and suggesting the possibility that given time, starlight might just make an anthotype. So that's the end of my presentation. I hope you've enjoyed it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Nettie. And we will kick off Caroline's talk.
Right, hi, my name's Caroline Mawer. I'm also might not be looking quite right at the screen. So what I want to show you some, I love dark skies. I was so excited when I heard about the Lumen thing because it seemed to be about what's your relationship with the night sky. And what I'm showing you is some of the places in the world where I have slept out underneath properly dark skies. And by that I mean places where you look up and you see the Milky Way looking like that. And if any of you that haven't slept out under that, please go somewhere where you can. It's just a totally amazing experience. The reason I'm showing you this picture is just to point out to you that I'm not an astronomical photographer. So I'm more of a stealing photos and making collages out of them sort of person, like drawing over them and generally making stuff happen with them. But I wanted to A, show you the Milky Way, and B, tell you that you're not going to see brilliant star photos from me. And I'm showing you this brilliant star photo. This is NASA's view of the Milky Way infrared view. And I'm showing you that to say that all the text stuff is all very well, but this is not what it feels like being close. For me, being close to the night sky does not feel like that at all. So luckily, you're not going to hear stories about everywhere that I've been, although I would be very happy to talk about it for a very long time. But I'm going to talk about 3 stories about some different places. And I want to make some points about how you feel about and look at the night sky. And hopefully that will make you think perhaps in different ways, or you can tell me even more different ways to feel about the night sky and look at it. So the first place I'm going to talk about is the Altai Mountains. They're up here. Can you see me swirling my little pointer around? Okay, fine, great. They're up there. So that's in southern Siberia, although the Altai Mountains also head off across Kazakhstan, China, Mongolia, and so on. And so this is a daytime trip. Loads of forests. There's quite a lot of snow. There's a bit of water that's open in the hot spring places, but I got here by skiing on a frozen river. You're luckily, because I have not included the picture of me skinny dipping. I thought that would be just too much when I haven't actually ever met any of you before, literally in the flesh. Oh no, that's the wrong set of words, isn't it? Anyway, so that's the Altai Mountains. But when you come out of in the dark, in the night, when you leave, kind of like, you can see that these are my friends and we kind of hang around together. So at the night time, then we're going to go between each other's huts to drink, actually, to be honest. And so you go out and there's this amazing sky above you that just is intoxicating. It's just amazing. And I got in such a lot of trouble because I could not look at the ground. I would just look at the sky and I would just fall over the whole time. And it's ice, so it's hurting on your bottom to fall onto the ice. And they're concerned about you falling over on the ice. So they say, look at the floor, look at the floor, look at the floor. And I couldn't do that. So in the end, they made me stand outside of the hut before we went anywhere, look at the sky for 10 minutes. And then I've had a bit of a sating of the sky. And then I could possibly look down. So what I'm going to show you is some stuff about the Pleiades. And I'm sure many of you have seen the Pleiades, but if you haven't, then this is the posh way of looking for them. This is my planisphere. I'm really rubbish at planispheres. And I want to say that point on purpose because the way that I look at the sky is not on a planisphere. But if you do want to find it on a planisphere, you look at it like this. And you look for Orion. There's Orion's belt. There's Betelgeuse up here. And then you look through the V of Taurus, and there's a very bright star there, and then that gets you to the Pleiades. Or I can show you a slightly more simple sky-based way, like here's Orion's belt. You can see there's, you know, the reddish thing there. There's the belt. There's the hanging down. We're in the different hemisphere from you guys at the moment, aren't we? I'm sorry about that. And so that you look up, although you can see, of course, Pleiades in the southern hemisphere as well. You look up, and there's the Taurus's eye, the bright star of Taurus's eye, and up there is the Pleiades, which is technically supposed to look like a little dipper. But I don't do any of that. I just go outside, I look up at the sky, I look around and I go, oh, there's Pleiades. How lovely. And that's one sort of looking at things that I want to talk about, is that, like, I don't know how I learned that even, but I just know that if you go outside, then my eye, it's one of the things that, it was not the first thing that I'll look at, but it's one of the things that I'll look at is Pleiades. And so now I want to show you is I'm going to have to go out and come back, not go out altogether, don't worry, otherwise it would be terrible. I want to just show you a video of my kind of view of what I think the Seven Sisters looks like. Here we go. So here's a bit of night sky, and you look around and then suddenly you start to notice the Seven Sisters running across the sky. And for me, when you lie and sleep under a dark sky, then it's, I think you can't actually see I don't know if you can see underneath the bits there. Are you seeing all of the seven? I'm not sure that you are. So there's more underneath here. I've got loads of pictures of people here, but there are other women running underneath here. And so, but when you're sleeping under the night sky, it's like there's a, sorry, we're just having a bit of reverse there. It's like the whole sky kind of goes over your face like a clock. And so when you kind of like vaguely wake up and look up, you can tell once you've slept out for a while by where the stars are, whether you're at the beginning of the night, the middle of the night, or the kind of like coming towards the end of the night. So that's one sort of looking. I've got to go back in. Oh, perfect. And but now I want to talk about a total, so that's looking with your eyes and then thinking about it. So that's one kind of looking. And now I'm going to talk about another sort of looking altogether, which is, instead of, the first one was your eyes and then your head. And now I'm going to talk about your head and then your eyes. And that's in Baja California. So just to make sure we all know where we are, this is the southern bit of North America, and that's Mexico. And this dangly bit off of there is Baja California. That's the Gulf of Cortez. And so I was on, this is the tip of the dozen days, La Paz. And then there are islands out in the Gulf of Cortez here where it's pretty dark. It's great. I love pretty darkness. And so I was sleeping there, and actually there were other people sleeping in tents. Why would you do that? Why would you want to sleep under a tent? It's insane. Put a hat on if your head's cold and sleep outside, because there will be the stars, and they will be, you know, it's at that moment where you just open your eyes a little bit and, oh, look, where are we? We're in the middle of the night, or we're in the later part of the night. Here I was happily sleeping, and with a few little, you know, sneaking out under my eye, and then suddenly I actually get knocked on the skull. It was really this great knocking, a knock on my skull, and I woke up suddenly and a bit unpleasantly, and I thought, what's going on? And I thought, something is in the sky, and I thought, what are you talking about? There's no problems up in the sky. Now, hopefully, this is the bit where, if we were in a pantomime, you'd be going, it's in front of you, it's in front of you. And because indeed I have put a little comet head in front of me, but I couldn't see it the first night. And then the second night, where am I going? I have to find out where I'm going on here. The second night, I thought, can I see something? Can I see something? Is there a comet up there? Because I knew that there was going to be a comet. I did know that there was going to be a comet something. And I thought, I must be wrong. I must be wrong. I must be wrong. And then the next night, however, there was definitely a comet. I was very excited. I woke everyone else up. They weren't excited as me. I was going, it's a comet, it's a comet. They weren't as excited as me at all. And so, although they were excited, the next day, when it looked like that, it just looked massive. It looked like this, it looked like the kind of comets that you see in the medieval pictures. So I'm going to show you a medieval picture of a comet. So medieval comets look like that. But actually, that's not too far off what comets look like now. So the medieval ones, when I first saw pictures like that of medieval comets, I thought, oh, it's just kind of like no, it's not like that at all. But I know this isn't a photo, but that is really what it looked like. It's really what it looked like. And so that's kind of my second sort of looking at things, is that, so that was starting with my head, literally knocking on my head. The comet is coming. It had actually been shouting at me, open your eyes and look at me, pay attention. And it took me a couple of nights, but then I did definitely pay attention, and I tried to make other people pay attention as well. And when they saw this version, they were very excited about it as well, as you would be. So that's what the medieval comet thing looks like. And I want to just show you another drawing of a comet. So this is Caroline Herschel's drawing of a comet. So she was a famous astronomer, and I know there's not that many female astronomers, but I have to say that her drawing of the comet here, she's drawing a technical drawing to try and, so that other people can see the comet. Well, maybe she was showing them this sort of comet, the beginning bit of the comet, when it's looking like that. And then you do need help to find it, if you see what I mean. But by the time it looks like this, you don't need any help at all, because it's right there in front of you. So that's me having whizzed through looking at things in terms of with your eyes and then with your head to think about it, and to and the second thought about, there's your head, because it's just hit you on the head, and then your eyes, in that you can't pay not attention to that. So the next place I want to talk about is Iran. In Iran, they're very, very proud of their skies. And rightly so, rightly so. This is some skies from Kerman, which is in the southwest corner. If any of you heard about that big earthquake in Bam, maybe even a decade ago, I'm not sure. It's kind of like a little bit to the north and to the west of Bam is Kerman. It's in the same area. The people in Kerman are proud of their skies, and they should be, because this is, you can see here, there's actually quite a lot of light pollution, because there is industrial stuff happening in Kerman, but look at those stars. Look at all of those stars in the sky. I'm afraid whenever I've been to Kerman, it's been cloudy, so I've never seen the wonderful skies of Kerman, because this is what I mean, I'm showing you other people's photos as well again. So, but here is what it looks like when there's less light pollution. It's just amazing. It's so luscious. They really just fall out of the sky at you. And they don't have to knock you on the head, because it's just a kind of like, they're just overwhelming you with the starriness of them. They're just great. I just love them. And I wanted to just read you something from a 14th, 15th century story, and this is called Vizan Ramin, and now I've got to find you. I've lost it. Maybe I'm going to find it in a bit of time there. So Vizan Ramin is actually an early form of Tristan and Isolde. There's many people that think this is the first story which is like Tristan and Isolde. And it's a romance, obviously. There's loads of bad things that happen as well as good things in it. But there's lots of stars in it. And I'm going to read you a part of that, which is gorgeous. And so in the same way as I do collage with images, then I also kind of think about text. And that's a collagey thing for me to work with as well. So this is in English, because I'm guessing that not that many of you understand Persian. The firmament was like a canopy, studded with jewels, vast in its majesty. The sun and moon were gone, as if they kept a lover's secret tryst and sweetly slept. Each star was like a pearl, set carefully against a ground of lapis lazuli. The heavens extended like an iron wall. Something terrible just happened there. The heavens extended like an iron wall. The stars grew languid and inscrutable. It's gorgeous, isn't it? What's not to like about that? So the I'm going back to my images now, or I'm endeavoring to. Here we go. So that Kemonist, they will think that they're the best in Iran. I don't agree with them, because I like the stars over this place here. I'm showing you in the daytime. So you can see this is going to have an amazing effect in the night. This is salt, and it extends for about. So this is a kind of like a NASA view. You know, it's a Google Earth type view. So you can. This is huge. It's about 40 kilometers of salt plains, and just to give you a scale of it. So this is Iran, and there's the Caspian. And here's Esfahan down here. And here's Mashhad, big and important town up here. And Tehran is up here somewhere. And there-ish. So here is that salt plain that I've just told you about. It's just here. And it's a restricted area, so you're not allowed into it. So I managed to get into it. And being there in the night is amazing. It's completely light. It's not completely light, but you could read if you want to. You could read. Why would you want to read, though? Because you want to look at the stars. Why would you want to read? Who knows about that? Anyway, you could read if you wanted to. I don't know. No, why would you want to? But anyway, so because it reflects, the light reflects off, the starlight reflects off this. And I was lucky enough to be there when there was a very small moon. So it was just the stars that you were seeing there. It was very bright, and because it reflects off the salt. But one of the reasons why I've included this, apart from the fact that I really love the stars there, is because the reason why I was there was because I was following the 1,200 kilometer walk of Shah Abbas, the great Shah. This is in 1601, or English 60, Western 1601, from Esfahan all the way up here to Mashhad. And so I had to get into this restricted area. But the way that I know where this guy went is because his high-tech person, his scientific support, was his astrologer, because the astrologers are the most high-tech people at the time. They can measure the time, which is an amazing thing to be able to do. In the year before, we all have loads of clocks around us, but if you don't have loads of clocks, then all you've got to do is look at the sky. How do you know what the time is? But the astrologers would know how to work out what the time is, and they would know where they were as well, because they would be using this, an astrolabe. And so with this little thing, you can work out where you are and when you are, which is quite clever. And an astrolabe, just in case none of you know you might know what it looks like, but this is what's inside an astrolabe. The astrolabe is kind of like the iPhone of its times, in terms of being the techie bit in which you can find out tons of stuff that you don't previously know. But it's made of lots of layers. So part of this is because you need these bits here, which have got it's like the planisphere. It's like a posher metal version of my horrible plastic planisphere, kind of. But you need to what kind of latitude you're in and everything like that. But it's then made into a work of art as well. So I'm now talking about looking at things historically. I'm talking about looking at things in a much wider context: geographical, social, historical. It's political as well, because to know what time it is and where you are is politically really important. So that's some stuff around astrolabes. And I also just want to mention that I think lots of people think that this is all men's business, and I know that, and I'm not, I really don't know enough at all about Indigenous peoples in Australia, but I know they think about men's business and women's business, and the stereotype in Western terms is that the stars are men's business, and that's not really quite true, because there's definitely more than one famous astrolabe maker who's a woman in the Ottoman world. Mainly they were men, but there is some women as well. So it's not a strict men's and women's business at all. And so from here, I'm just going to go back to my salt thing, because I just love seeing that picture. So from this amazing place, then I walked over here in the daytime, and I walked over here in the night as well. It's a great place to walk here. And in fact, in around, it was about 1595, then there was a Western woman, or not very Western, she was actually kind of an Armenian, she was more in the Armenian era. Then she was here with her partner, and she refused to sleep inside. She had actually constructed a whole canopy for her, and she was like, I'm not going in that. I need to be outside under the stars. What a woman after my own heart. I can totally, it was so, and there's a whole description in there about how he was trying to keep her warm and put her in all these different cotton padding. But no, she was, I want to look at the stars. And she was insistent about that. And I can really take her point of view on that. Anyway, so if you keep going across here, and if I go back to this one here, if you keep going across here and then you go up to about here-ish, then you get to this amazing building here. And I'm showing this is a restricted building, and so to get here is really difficult. And so, but all of these people are here for astronomy. So they're actually having a Messier marathon. And so all the astronomers here will know what that is. They're all from dusk till dawn, trying to see all of these 110 things that the Messier sorted about. And there's quite a lot of Iranian astronomers, since they're so proud of their skies, and they were all meeting here to have a Messier marathon. And this building, I've been there a lot. I love it such a lot, but I couldn't take a good picture of it. And I was just looking today, I was looking to see, are there any pictures that do it any justice at all? And there are not. You need to go there. You will have to get special permission to go. But I just want to, even in 1623, there was an English ambassador someone who was with the English ambassador at the time, was traveling there, and he was writing about this building and saying, what an amazing building it was. And he says something like, in the last, let me try and find you the actual words. I'm sorry, because I have to go back and forth and find things. Yeah. So this is Thomas Herbert, who actually was he was an attendant with King Charles when he was executed. He was very close to King Charles at that time. But before then, in 1623, then he spoke specifically about this notable building from the ground of good freestone, white and well polished. This was the first building of that material he saw in 800 miles riding. And it is. So when you're walking and then going by car as well, it's just this amazing luminescent white glowing building, which is also going to be great for watching stars from. So when I went there, then how am I doing for time? I'm kind of whizzing my way through. So I want to just say a little bit about, so when I got there myself, then, hang on, I'm going back to my things. Slowly, then I also sat on the roof. That's a traditional thing to do when you get to a caravanserai. This is not a caravanserai, this is actually a royal hunting lodge. But when you get somewhere like this, after you've got there in the night or first thing in the morning, you go up on the roof and you tell stories to each other. And so my good friend Reza and I, then we sat up on the roof here without any of these other people there and told each other stories, and including more from Viz and Ramin. And what I want to do is I want to just show you this building here. This is the top of a building made in Timurid times. So in 15th century, this is repainted now. And you can see that it's just, although it's a building, it's also a firmament, isn't it? It's spattered with stars. It's got all of these different stars up in here. They're not kind of like realistic stars, but I mean, I've told you at the beginning that I'm not interested in realistic stars. This is a proper non-realistic star thing here. All of these stars floating up here. And so Reza and I sat up on the top and we did indeed tell each other stories. And one of which I'm just going to tell you. I'm going to tell you a bit more out of Viz and Ramin about how the constellations were described during that as well. So I'm going to go back again. I'm sorry it takes me a bit of time there. So this is them talking about the constellations. The bull and ram were paralyzed with fear, sensing the lion of the sky was near. The heavenly twins were locked in their embrace, a water wheel revolving in one place. The crab slept quietly at their feet. You'd say the claws and soul had both been snatched away. The lion stood before the crab as though, immovable, its tail curved like a bow, arching above its massive back and head. Its eyes and mouth glowed pomegranate red. So, I think that, I know that I'm just sort of collaging a bit of poetry in here as well. And, but what I want to say is, so this bit here, we've had from the beginning, I talked to you about, so first your eyes and then you think about it. The second one is you get knocked on your head and then you think about it and then you see it. But all this Islamic stuff, and I think it might even have been mentioned in the previous speaker while I was desperately trying to sort my tech problems out, is that, of course, Islamic astronomers were miles ahead of the Western ones for quite a long time. And even when the Western ones were going along, then Ulugh Beg, for example, his star charts were still being used hundreds of years after he made them with his amazing 30-foot high observatory in Samarkand. And what I'm kind of like just trying to say is that this bit here, this mixture, this pastiche, this collage, this bricolage of art and science, because imagine the science that you need to lay that out on. This is, you don't just get up there and just have a little kind of fiddle around. You need to lay that out really carefully before you paint it. So you need science and art and all of those things coming together. And I was just kind of throwing in a bit of poetry as well, which I think is appropriate because it is a poetic feeling being out under a big black night sky.